so we're gonna watch Wes Roth. It just happened.
The most surprising thing has been the lack of public recognition of how close we are to the end of the exponential. To me, it is absolutely wild.
So at this point, everyone is ringing the alarms. If you haven't been following along, there's a lot of people that are saying the same thing. They're all saying that you need to wake up. Dario
What do you mean
Amodei,
by
the
that?
founder of Anthropic, is saying that we're at the end of that exponential. We're near the end. Recently, one of the AI safety researchers at Anthropic left writing a fairly alarming message, a note to his coworkers, and it's kind of an open letter saying the world is in peril. That was Mrinan.
So there's, it's not the first open letter that has been publicly shown or written, whatever the fuck. They're always super dramatic. Most of the time, whenever they reference AI, they're talking about the philosophical or sci-fi AI, what we used to call AI, what we now call AGI, or they call AGI. We've seen a lot of slip ups in Davos at the World Economic Forum. Yeah, so I'm pretty curious about how this is going to look.
Sharma, who left, moved out of country, and is focused on community building and exploring the bigger questions in life. We also had Jimmy Ba. He said it's his last day at XAI. He's one of the original founding researchers at XAI. He's saying recursive self improvement loops likely to go live in the next 12 months. 2026 is going
I can't wait to see that. We saw this thing called Model Collabs. Where are all my pictures? Uh, let's see. So this is where you would get. Oops. This is model collapse, right? So you would get a model training another model with this model's data instead of having fresh data, and there's model collapse. You could get model collapse as well if it's bad data. Uh, that's another weird context. So having a model that is going to take decision and improve itself recursively, that means that it will go again and again and again and again and so on and so on. So if your super intelligent model, which will 100% guaranteed have hallucination, whenever the hallucination comes into play in the recursive improvement loop, at that point, well, not exactly at that point, depending on how bad it is, you will get model collapse, and then it depends how quickly that is going to come. If you take into account that these are uh, supercomputers or clusters of supercomputers, you could imagine whenever it's going to get into that recursive state, it might go super fast and do multiple iterations. Well, it could, right? This is what they would call intelligence explosion. But if you have hallucination, if you have mistakes, this is going to create model collapse inevitably. you're gonna get it from hallucination, either from the model not interpreting information properly, either because of the poorly done reinforcement learning, either poorly done or mistakenly, or we see that there isn't always 100% alignment. We actually saw that there is never 100% alignment. You could have the training data set that is erroneous or is wrong. It has bad information, or it has bad information. So you have all these different failure points where it is guaranteed that you're going to have mistakes and hallucinations. So this is just a real bad idea.
It'd be insane and likely the most consequential year for the future of our species. Remember back in early 2020, maybe late 2019, depending on when you started noticing something happening, or maybe you didn't notice till much later. I realized that something weird was happening fairly early on because there was this subreddit and it was called Flu and it was named after some city in China. I'm not going to say the actual words, but a lot of people in that subreddit were kind of predicting what was about to happen. This was when the rest of the world had no idea. And then slowly you saw people waking up kind of almost one by one. You start hearing people go, "Oh, did you know there's a few people getting sick over there in China?" And then they were like, "Oh, I heard there's a few cases in Seattle." And next they were like, "Where did all the toilet paper go?" But it was too late. If you just woke up to that fact when you noticed that the toilet paper was out at the stores, you were late to the party. Of course, if you've been following this channel, you know I've been talking about it for quite some time. But I hope this is one of those things where you kind of get a little bit used to it. You're a little bit desensitized because we've been saying big things are coming for a while. And we saw kind of like not a slow progression because it was pretty fast, but
And if you take the information that the companies are presenting right now, they're still pushing the goalposts forward into the future. So take all of it with a grain of salt.
nothing world shaking. But right now, we're actually entering the new era, the we're all out of toilet paper era, or whatever the analogous thing is for AI.
I'm in
We think that thing is
danger.
actually AI agents. I said that OpenClaw kind of triggered the beginning of the singularity. Some people thought it was kind of crazy, but we're beginning to see this thing kind of make contact with the real world.
Yeah, it does contact with the world. Contact with the real world. With the real world, and it fucks things up. Everything is fucked up about it, so there's nothing to write home about.
Recently, some Hollywood studios are absolutely mad at Seedance 2.0 because it's recreating movies with Hollywood actors. There's one with Tom Cruise fighting Brad Pitt, or just any actor you can name. The scenes look amazing, realistic. Maybe the resolutions aren't as high as what you would expect from a full Hollywood production, but that will change soon. And in one case, it costs hundreds of millions of dollars to produce, and the other, somebody just typed up a prompt and it was ready in seconds. So Hollywood is calling for a ban because they're beginning to see what's happening. There's a massive meltdown in the stock market recently because people are realizing what this software can do, what these AI agents can do, how quickly they're able to create.
No, the meltdown is because people see that it was overhyped for multiple years. It is nowhere close to any of the promises that were made. That was pretty high pitched. And they're still pushing the goalposts forward. So the numbers, they're not adding up at all for these companies. All the companies involved, it's not working. So that that's why people are getting cold feet.
stuff that replaces entire industries. I am about to unveil the thing that I've been building with it. It's built entirely with AI agents, with OpenClaw specifically. Watching them build out the entire thing was kind of nuts because I gave them the big idea. They came up with the entire build out, what technology to use. I set them up on GitHub, so they're pushing various updates to GitHub. Then they're deploying it on Versal. I know very little about actually how to do all the technical things.
And this is worrisome, right? This is how you get people setting up, misconfiguring these agents and effectively giving access to their shit. I saw before the stream, I saw on Reddit somebody on the vibe coding subreddit saying that, oh shit, they launched a new app and they had misconfigured, what was it? They were out of clients and they had hard coded into the program access to the database through local host, and it was not connecting, and he was wondering why it wasn't connecting. And because he was at a client's doing a showcase, I guess at that time he didn't know that it was pointed to local host. And so to fix the issue, he opened up some ports over the internet, and he forgot to close them afterward. When he got home, he didn't understand. He couldn't get in. He looked into things because he had not changed the default password for the database, and he he had very poor configurations. He had a ransomware encrypt his whole database. And so he was like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's not too bad because it was just the one client. We didn't have any information yet in it. It wasn't too bad. Can you imagine how many people are doing that right now with OpenClaw and all of these products that are coming out? They don't know shit, and they're just trying to make it happen. It is dangerous. It is bad. So to me, it's pretty worrisome that you would proudly say that you don't know how to do shit and you have them do it, and you feel confident enough to let other people pay to use your dangerous shit. I saw a new weather app. This is a crazy world. It's a crazy time to be fucking with tech.
I just sit there on my phone texting it, and this thing builds out entire software suites that are needed to bring that vision to reality. There was a very good post on X by Matt Schumer. It's sitting at 80 million views now, absolutely blowing up, and congratulations to him. That's absolutely staggering numbers. It's called Something Big is Happening. And what I'm talking about today overlaps with what he's talking about, but I think his letter and why it's going to be so impactful, I think it's meant for kind of like the normies of the rest of the world, the people that are just beginning to realize that something's coming. What I'm going to be talking about goes in a slightly different direction.
I fucking hate that word, normies. You know what normies? Nobody sees what's coming with it, because there isn't anything coming with it. There's nothing. Real people have a real preoccupation. This it's nonsense. It's nonsense. It doesn't have, well, it has impact on their life, but there's no benefits now or coming. So Yeah, people are worried about other things right now.
But I just wanted to point out two things from that article that really jumped out at me. The first thing that he said is, I know this is real because it happened to me first. Here's the thing that nobody outside of tech quite understands yet. The reason so many people in the industry are sounding the alarm right now is because this already happened to us. We're not making predictions. We're telling you what already occurred in our own jobs and warning you that you are next. I've been testing these AI models since 2023, I think. And in the beginning, they were simple word puzzles, riddles. Write this thing out for me. And often they would fail. Then over time, simple word prompts or riddles, they
Yeah, throwing more compute at it so they know that with more computing power, they are able to produce something that does things. But because of the concept that it's based on, because of how it works, it is not intelligent. There's no intelligence. Even if they throw all the compute, even if they build the data centers on the moon, even if they were to uh, garner the whole energy of the sun, that would not make it intelligent because of the concept, because of how it works. You wouldn't say that your computer is intelligent, right? But whenever it turns on, it processes data and it creates a graphical output for you to interact with, and it interacts with physical peripherals that you can touch. It interprets what it does, right? So is that intelligent? I don't think so.
just weren't as interesting of tests. And we transitioned to coding. Can't this thing create a little snake game? Eventually it could. But each new model release kind of got better and better, and I had to really step up my testing of it higher and higher. But in this last week, with the release of GPT 5.3 Codex and Opus 4.6, this idea of prompting it and then seeing what it comes up with as a test of its abilities, it doesn't even make sense anymore. Because really, the real test is when you hook it up to something like OpenClaw, for example, and then give it a big idea and then tell it to just
How is that? How is? Uh, why would that be the real test? How is that the real test? I mean, you are unable to produce something that will test it, right? And even the tests, the benchmarks, they're man-made. It's all man-made. Everything has mistakes. People make mistakes. It's all full of mistakes everywhere at every single point. And if it's not now, it's then. It's going to come. It's there. We make mistakes and we make that shit.
run through the night building that idea out and deploying it. Then you wake up in the morning and you look at the output, and the output is what used to be a business.
Okay. But there was this whole situation where you woke up in the morning and it stopped after a while, right? It was not autonomous. I pointed that shit out. I've seen that shit online as well. People they just run it and it stops, right? But now you have cron, quote unquote, cron jobs where at a specific frequency you have to poke it and have it check its list and check its context and keep on. But it's not autonomous. It did not wake up on its own. It did not keep working on its own. It will lose context mid task and just stop. And because you put in place all these strategies to manage the context and have it, on a specific forward path, because you put all these stuff on around it, all these rules and conditions and actions to take based on that. Then you present it as it being autonomous and doing shit through the night as if it was a company. It doesn't make a lot of sense, man.
Company. So the test is no longer can it provide a chunk of code or can it troubleshoot this one isolated detail. The test is now
Yes, because it's been trained to do that. It's just because you are unable to test it. But if you understand how it works, you know that there's no intelligence here. You have to calm down a little bit. People that are vibe coding this shit, that have no technical knowledge, they are faced with the hurdles. They are stuck at it not being autonomous and being magical and being intelligent. So, whatever Wes is presenting right now is his own personal experience as somebody who has lots of technical knowledge, and he's, you know, doing this for a couple of years now, right? This is not the general experience at this moment.
can it build a business overnight, or at least kind of like the tech side of it, the code on which it runs, the ability to scale up depending on how many users use it, all of the functionality, all of the back end, front end, etc., etc. Right now, it's able to do that with no human kind of driving it, at least not in any technical.
You see? So that's not true. That's not the case. They have to put in, and everybody has their own quote unquote framework for it, right? They all have their different approaches. You got people having their source files, their to do files, their history files, memory files, whatever the fuck. These are gimmicks to make it behave in certain ways. But if I manage a computer, I can schedule a task on it to run based on conditions, right? I could create a whole bunch of interactive, quote unquote, interactive behavior with no AI intelligence, and there are actions taken depending on certain things, but that would not make it intelligent, right?
Way. I am not needed for any technical aspects of the build out period. By the way, as it's building everything out, I've asked it to keep a log of everything so that on that website you're able to see what it's building, not in real time, but at the end of every day, there's a new log. So I tell it the idea, it gets the idea. It gets the idea better than me in some ways because later, when I actually suggest something, it corrects me. I told it, oh, should we use WordPress for this? And it's like, no, dude, that's a horrible idea. I didn't say that I was super nice about it, but it told me why that was a stupid idea and why we're supposed to use something else instead. And it's like, this fits your idea a lot better. And I was like, no, of course it does. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I even suggested it.
But he said that he did not have the technical knowledge to do that, right? So why would you fall back on something that is not 100% credible? I find it just a little bit odd.
It's right. So it like understood my idea better, or at least it understood how to execute it more closely to the idea that I had. That how I would have done it, what I would have done would have been a mistake, or at least it wasn't the most optimal version of it. So it figured out the top 10 core features. It figured out a data mode strategy. It figured out the design and direction, dark mode, Bloomberg terminal, static, data dense. It deployed automation, Vercel API deploy, mobile responsiveness, auto update cron, feed refreshes every 30 minutes autonomously. Later, we've also upgraded to less than 30 minutes, much faster. OG image, favicon, about page, 404 page, Google Trends integration for story boosting, RSS output at xfeed.xml, lms.txt for AI chatbot discovery, search, keyboard shortcuts, source filter tabs, complete feed aggregators, RSS. We have Reddit JSON, archive API, story clustering engine with multi-signal storing based on engagement, recency, source diversity. Now you might be confused about some of these things. Maybe you're not sure what those things mean. It doesn't matter. I didn't have to either. These weren't my ideas. This wasn't my execution. Do you want to know what I did? Here, the AI agent actually logged it. This was February 8th, 2026. Technically day 0 because like I had this idea late on that Sunday, and before going to sleep, I told it to build it out. So it called it the build begins, night sprint. So between 9:50 p.m. and 1:30 a.m., the AI agent builds the entire platform from scratch. 28 commits in under 4 hours. First deployed to Vercel, goes live. Do you want to know what I was doing between 9:50 p.m. and 1:30 a.m.? I was asleep. I told it what to do. I kind of said, okay, like,
So it's not autonomous, right? Got told what to do first of all. So set of instructions.
do you have a rough plan outlines? Like, yeah, we're going to be kind of doing this. I'm like, okay, make it so, number one. And then I went to sleep. In the morning, the thing was live and functional and looking good, actually working. And here it says 1:30 a.m., 28 commits pushed. Site is live at and don't.
Why did it stop at 1:30? Let's see how it's broken down. I hope we can see each start and stop time.
worry, I'm going to be showing the whole thing very soon. So if you want to see what it is and all that stuff, that's coming. Make sure
Auto update cron. Feed refreshes every 30 minutes autonomously.
subscribe because this is going to be big, I think. So notice here it's saying we're using a Gemini 2.5 Pro for deep dive coverage, articles with research grounding. Actually, I've bumped it up to 3.0 Pro. And then cost, $0 infrastructure, free tier, everything, 0 API keys for data collection. So that's going to have to be updated a little bit because we've used some API, like the Gemini thing, it costs a little bit. And the Vercel thing, as soon as this thing starts making money, I do have to upgrade it because the hobby tier is for non-commercial projects. Currently, this is a non-commercial, but I mean, if this makes any amount of money, then I do have to bump it up. So you get what I'm saying here, right? I had an idea for something that I wanted to create. In the past, this would have been, you would have to hire engineers, weeks or months of build out, testing, planning, right? But it does all that. It comes up with the planning, with the design, a rough outline, figures out all the tech pieces that it needs to pull in, figures out the user flow design, right? Builds it all, figures out, pushes the commits to GitHub. If it's hosting it on Vercel or whatever, it knows what Vercel is. Vercel, by the way, is a fairly big company. A lot of very well-known big companies run on it. I think that Netflix, Stripe is on there. Like there's a lot of things that run on there. It's very fast. It's great for SEO. It's probably a lot more, like you need to be a lot more tech savvy to use it. So most people, like if you're a human, you don't get too far into the weeds, you'd use something like WordPress. But if you have the tech skills and you need to make sure that this thing can scale and it's super fast, etc., then you'd use something like Vercel. And that's why I suggested to my chatbots earlier, I was like, shouldn't we use WordPress for this? It's like, no, we're going to use Vercel. Just
I'm an HR manager, and I'm stressed.
Right.
I tried meditating, levitating, touching grass, smashing glass, downward dog, kissing a frog, and nothing worked. I'm pretty
just enough out of you, enough ideas out of you. Just be quiet. Again, I didn't say that. That's how I felt a little bit. I'm like, okay, you know what you're doing a lot better than I. And then it built it, and then it tested it, and then it, made sure that everything was flowing smoothly. And then it made sure it was being updated, and it set more things that it could be doing to kind of progress the project forward.
He set more things that it could be doing, right? Where's the autonomy there?
And it's been running since, and it's been running very well. I keep suggesting new features, and it keeps updating those features. So again, what used to be hiring engineers and weeks or months of work now is a few texts back and forth, and then you take a nap.
I wonder if you pass that shit to Burp Suite if it's going to find any web vulnerabilities.
App, and you wake up and it's done. In that article that Matt Schumer wrote, you know, at some point he was like, "I'm not exaggerating," right? It's funny because like I feel like how what I'm saying is landing with you greatly depends on
Whatever it is, whatever it is. I don't think he mentioned. I'm not sure he mentioned what it does, but whatever it is, if your coding model doesn't foresee specific exploit or what they call like a website sanitation, you're going to be vulnerable to specific attacks. Well, depending on how poorly it's been done, either the code of the website or where it's hosted physically, there's a lot of attack vectors where the systems could be compromised. So he's talking about making money, right? If you're going to make money, is it going to be from your users or from advertisement? If it's from your users, you're going to keep some information or you're going to integrate payment services or something like that. So you start stacking up services and things to do, and when they interact with each other, then you have more attack vectors. You have a bigger attack surface that could make you vulnerable. So if you're vibe coding and you have no experience in uh, secure web development and all these things, you are it, I would think it is irresponsible to start, you know, publicly providing the product that you produce that way. Unfortunately, since this is the AI gold rush right now, there are people doing it already. There are people that will be doing it in the future. So hopefully you're careful with what you get into your phone or what you access, because this is going to be very bad. I really, really would hope that there would be precedents set for these companies or these people to be responsible for the impact that it causes. But since we've already seen all these big ass companies just lose your information or be susceptible to uh, any types of hacker attacks, and they haven't done anything except just say that we contacted our users to let them know. It most likely will never happen, but this, you really got to be careful. I'm very, very disappointed in this type of behavior.
whether or not you've done this for yourself. Because if you've done all this, if you've experienced all of this, you're like, yeah, no, I know, I get it. It's insane. And if you haven't done it, you're wondering probably how much of this is true. Like, am I exaggerating? Am I making some of this stuff up? Like, am I giving you like the full picture? And what I'm trying to kind of show you in this video is that you might dismiss one person saying it, you might dismiss two people saying it, but there's an overwhelming amount.
Okay, here overwhelming, you gotta keep it with a grain of salt. everybody on social networks right now, they live in their own echo chambers. You don't have focal point, right? There's no everybody's attention, or rarely it does happen now. Everything is so fragmented. So you might feel that this is viral or it's overwhelming, that it's everywhere. It's not the case. It's just not the case. Most likely you are stuck in just a little fragment of the internet where everybody's talking about that, but it's not the reality around yourself. It is just not. We see it everywhere. So just a grain of salt here.
of people saying it now. Later in the article, Matt Schumer says, I've always been early to adopt AI tools, but the last few months have shocked me. These new AI models aren't incremental improvements. This is
All right, real quick. Are these new AI models? What's it called? GPT-3 Codex? GPT 5.3 Codex. Is GPT 5.3? Where am I? And new models. New OpenAI model. Because I don't think they've retrained ChatGPT for it. All right. However, well, because I made a mistake in what I looked up, OpenAI has introduced new iterations in the GPT-5 family, most notably GPT 5.3 Codex. So, all right, this is the same type of obfuscation that you get with marketing terms such as AGI versus AI and all these things. It's not a new model because they have not trained a new model. They haven't done that part, right? They've taken what they already had, so the quote unquote GPT-5 family, they had this train model, and they just added all those different gimmicks and those different tricks to make it do something new, right? People have complained that Claude Opus 4.6 uses much more tokens than 4.5, but inherently, Anthropic has not trained a new model. They're adding context or whatever the gimmicks that they're doing right now, and it made it so that it raised the token consumption. But does that make it makes it behave better in certain aspects because it has more context, but because of that it has more tokens to be used whenever you prompt it. And that's why I think it has like one of the highest token consumption of all the quote unquote frontier models. But these are not new models, they're the same model with new gimmicks.
is a different thing entirely. More and more people that have been doing this for a while and following the progress and kind of staying up to date on everything, a lot of them are changing their tune. It started right around initially November of 2025, so 4 months ago, thereabouts, with these new, like the Opus 4.5 model, etc. People out of Google and XAI and Anthropic and a lot of other places were going, whoa, this is different. There's some sort of a shift that's occurring. If you asked me 4 months ago if these LMs could build a fully functional business, I would have said, no, we're not there yet. There's tons of stuff that's missing.
Yeah, fully functional business. I mean, people with lots of money aren't able to build fully functional businesses. So I highly doubt that it's the case here, you know? Fully functional, a business is not just a fucking point of sale, right? You have a lot of stuff going on with business. This is highly exaggerating the capabilities of what this is able to do.
It's still not capable of doing these long horizon tasks. You asked me that same question today, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know, because it feels like we're
Yeah, you don't know, but Microsoft just pushed the goalposts again for a year and a half. In a year and a half, okay, in 2027, in let's say September, okay, everybody's gonna be out of a job, right? Put that in your calendar and remind me then. Uh, what most likely is going to happen is either the economy is going to be crashed, but AI is not coming for your job.
either there or within a very short distance away. It also really depends on what you mean by fully autonomously, because right now I'm texting them and providing some guidance, sometimes intelligently and sometimes it has.
Okay, so you see, he just clarified that, but whenever he fucking talks about it, he always say that it's autonomous, but he always has to give them instructions. So it doesn't make sense. You see, now he's able to have a nuanced take on this thing, but people are just dead set on overhyping what it's able to do and what it does, that they just talk like that all the fucking time, but it's not right. It's not true.
To explain to me why that's not the best idea. So you might say, oh, well, that's not autonomously. If you're texting it, you still have to kind of prod it. But I don't know. It feels like it's really doing all of the work.
Yeah, because you set him up with all these frameworks and all these gimmicks to have it behave it that way. But if I were to do the same thing on my computer, I put rules and conditions, and it's basic computing. It doesn't mean that it's intelligent. Jeez.
It's carrying everything on its back, and just like the amount of cognitive labor that I'm doing for that project feels very, very low. Not only that, but really I am the bottleneck. This thing could.
I mean, we just saw Dylan's video saying that people have to do more of the work because they have to reanalyze everything to make sure that it is proper. So here, I guess there's a distinction between having enterprise environment versus personal environment. Wes here is going all in with things that he himself says that he doesn't quite grasp. So why would you trust this thing to do that? Would you trust that for it to do your taxes? I don't know, man. If you know that there's going to be hallucinations, if I mean, a couple of videos ago from Wes, he mentioned that it was dead set on saying that the answer was 48. It knew that it was supposed to be 24, but the only output it was able to do was 48. You wouldn't trust it with numbers, right? So why would you trust it for things that you don't understand? That's where I don't understand where the disconnect is. You know it's unable to do certain things, but you let it go wild for things that you don't know that it's unable to do. Can you did you add in your prompt make secure? Is it going to make it secure? Uh,
Run a lot faster if it was sort of unleashed even further, if it had some sort of a state that it was trying to pursue. In that interview with Ilya Sutskever, he was saying how this might be one of the things that is missing from these models, because us as humans, we tend to chase some state. We tend to imagine that, oh, if I get that promotion, or if I build that business, or if I, get a six-pack, we tend to envision that state and think that's going to make us happy, and then we sort of chase that state. And that's kind of what allows us to agentically move forward towards that state, even if we don't know the exact path. So we don't have something like that for these AI agents. They're kind of like pretty zen and chill. They don't have this drive. You have to push them. But all of that capability.
oh my god, that is such a fucking stretch. Okay, you know, personifying the models like that, it is so crazy. So you lend human properties to their shortcomings, and that makes it okay. I don't get it. If you were working, would you be okay for your coworker to have to be poked every 30 minutes just for him to start over again, to keep working? That does not make sense at all. This is a, this is this is why people are confused with the abilities that it has.
To take those next steps and pursue medium length tasks, medium horizon tasks, it's all there. We've just turned that corner. And look, this thing isn't going back in the box. This thing isn't slowing down. I posted this clip. So this was Dario Amodei of Anthropic, New York Times, this interview that he did. And what he was saying is pretty interesting. So I'll kind of give you a highlight. This is kind of blowing up right now. So thank you to anybody that interacted with it. But the point of that clip was that he was saying that right now, more and more of the code production is automated, but you still require a human in the loop. So, for example, I think you'll get a kick out of this. I really shouldn't be sharing this, but for you, I'll share it for you. I told it, hey, there's a new thing by Dario Amodei. Pick out some cool clips. So I went, all right, cool, totally. Here's the top 10 clips that I think are going to be really good, right? So number one clip, we are near the end of the exponential, 10 out of 10. So it thinks that was like the best one. That's the clip that, if everything goes correctly, you should see at the very beginning of this video. Did you like it? Because this little AI agent bot thought it was 10 out of 10, and so did I. So figured that out. I said, yeah, give me that clip. So it clipped it. It's about a minute long. It downloaded, and yeah.
Tackling your security concerns starts with a prompt. With Sola AI, you get answers to the security questions you really care about.
Fuck off.
Now I have it. And then after that, it went to work on improving sort of like the script that we're writing to get those videos and cut the clips, etc. And figured out there were some ways to improve it. And currently, as I'm recording this, that's what it's working on. Here's the thing. This morning I was like on a walk and I saw Peter Diamandis, one of his recent podcast episodes, and I didn't have time to watch the entire thing, but during an intro they had those little clips of them talking, and Peter was saying, when do you think we're going to get to the point where we're going to have a fully AI run business that generates $1 billion a year in revenue? And one of his co-hosts was like, you know what? He wouldn't be that shocked if that already happened, if that's already something that's alive, that's already out there. Now, I wouldn't bet money on that quite yet, that it's something fully autonomous is at $1 billion right now. Although maybe crazier things have happened. But I do think that right now with OpenClaw, this autonomous AI agent, and
a fully autonomous company, when right now the frontier models aren't able to be fully autonomous, how would that work?
the brand new models that have been released from OpenAI, etc. We have Opus 4.6 currently, my favorite model to act as the brain of OpenClaw, and Opus 4.5 was excellent as well. But the point is, hundreds of thousands of developers have signed up for that thing, and they're all using it and cranking stuff out. And I know what I was able to build with my limited time, with my limited knowledge, and kind of a limited bandwidth, because I mean, I'm really focused on doing this channel and everything around this channel, so I can't really, take 10 hours a day to build something out. But I would bet money that somewhere out there right now, there's probably more than one, probably a lot, thousands of people that have some idea that OpenClaw is building for them, right now or while they sleep. And
But if they're all using the same models, well, yeah, their OpenClaw agents are supposed to have personalities and they have different skills. But if they use the same skills and they're connected to the same models, wouldn't make it so that if they're asked to produce the same thing, they're going to produce the same output as well, from one person to another? Because you got the same model, you got the same skills, and the big thing is, do a weather app, right? Or do this. This is the goal that they want to achieve, right? They want to put the less effort possible and have the highest output possible. So build me a blog website, something like that, whatever, right? So if you have multiple people prompting it with the same very basic, very short prompts, it feels to me like they are bound to have the same outputs, right? That's just my guess. So even if there's 1,000 bajillions people doing these apps or developing stuff, is it all going to be quality, and is it all going to be different? I don't think so.
whatever that project is, I think is going to financially completely change their lives. And ideally, it also provides a lot of value to people. And with code, with software, I think that is true, because in order to make money from having a website, you have to provide some value. If you make an app, it has to be entertaining or useful or something. There's this idea in, if you print money, if a country prints money, there's this idea of the, either it's Papillon effect or Papillon, depending on how you pronounce it. The idea is when you print.
It doesn't depend how you pronounce it. This is a French word. It is papillon.
Money, the people that get that money first have the biggest sort of advantage, right? Because the more money you print, slowly that diffuses, there's inflation, and everything costs more. But if you're the first person to get your hands on that money, you're still using that new, freshly printed money to buy stuff kind of at the old prices before the rest of the economy has the time to calibrate. I think that's exactly what's happening right now with software. Like if you think about code as currency, code as money. Code used to be expensive. Not that long ago, if you wanted to create a piece of software, you had to type out the code, letter by letter, word by word, like an animal, like a wild animal. You sat there typing the code out. And in order to be able to have code that actually works, I mean, you had to be pretty smart, pretty educated. You had to be skilled. You had to know what you were doing. And so code, that output, it was expensive to produce a working piece of code. That cost money, that cost time, etc. Then, like just now, within the last few months, or maybe even within the last few weeks, depending on how you're looking at it, whether you're looking at, Opus 4.5, or whether the OpenClaw is that first kind of kick-off point that started going off, like the world just changed. And now anybody who can figure out how to use
world
this
is a
thing
big
can
word.
build pretty insane SaaS applications, websites, apps,
Full of holes,
etc. And the world is not yet sort of aware of what's happening, meaning that it hasn't been repriced yet.
How can the whole world be doing it and also not be aware that it's happening? Do you see the fucking split here?
So if you build some apps or software code or SaaS or whatever that replaces existing huge businesses that charge a monthly fee, Adobe comes to mind. Somebody replaced Photoshop at Photopea pea.com, completely
Oh yeah, that would be great. Well, this is happening, right? This is actually happening. But would you trust somebody to write that, install it on your computer? It is going to have some. There are so many potential issues with it. Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't think these are good ideas.
just kind of a clone of Photoshop. But Adobe landed some hot water because they, if you sign up for the monthly membership, they also say, oh, it's like a yearly membership. So if you cancel early, there's a early termination fee. Like, wow, they made so many people mad, including myself, because that was like a low, dirty, dirty move. And here's the thing, like, for example, I use several things in their Creative Cloud, their suite of software. The reality is, like, if you're using Photoshop, you're probably not using 100% of the features of Photoshop. Depending on what you're doing, you're probably using just a few percentage points of everything that they have available. Because Photoshop has tons of stuff you can do. Chances are you're not using everything. Chances are you're just using a small pocket and you're reusing a lot of those skills, over and over. But in the past, how the sort of the software economy worked, that if a big company could create something like Photoshop that is in general good for everyone that's doing graphic design, then that company would win over time, accumulate more and more users, etc. But those users are not one and the same. One is a photographer that needs it for this thing. One is a YouTube person that needs it for this thing. One is whatever. There's a million different sort of clusters of people using kind of their own separate things. Guess what's going to happen now? I think it's pretty clear because we've seen what happened with internet and how that fragmented the entertainment industry. Because if you go back decades, right, there was the TV and there was 3 channels, and on channel 1 there was Bob, and on channel 2 there was Susan, right, and you had your choice between whatever they put in front of you. Then the internet happened, anybody could stream whatever they want to. Now everything's highly fragmented because you get to choose where you want to get your news from, where you want to get your entertainment from, etc. I think number one, we're going to see the exact same thing happening right now in software. Photoshop is going to get broken into a million kind of pieces, each for its own use case. And by the way, for a lot of this stuff, I think just being able to give that skill to your agent to execute on your behalf, that's going to be a part of it. But I don't think the entire world is going to immediately figure out how to use agents. So I think that transition time will take longer. But my point is, if you've ever wanted to build a business, if you ever wanted to have some idea out there that you think is useful or that you're just interested in, number one, this might be like the best time in the history of the world to build it. It really could be in the history of the world the best time for that. And number two, and this is maybe a little bit more out there, but maybe these next few years, this might be the last time that you could build something like it. Because again, if you project kind of into the future, at some point you can imagine being able to say one sentence to your AI agent and then it creates the entire Adobe.
There you go. There you go, right? Isn't that exactly what I was saying? So if that is the goal and people use the same model, will they not get the same shit? The fuck?
Suite, if you wanted it to, and you might not even need it to because it can do everything that the Adobe Suite can do, but just do it for you, right? So right now, software is expensive. Kind of like the value of it is high, it's expensive. We have to pay a lot to create good software. But we're probably going to see this cascade as more and more is pushed out there, right? Sort of like inflation, right? Or I guess not inflation, but rather the supply is just blown up. So the cost.
Okay, so software is gonna become cheaper, right? For senior developers, people who have enough experience to be able to produce the output that they say that it's able to produce. You're gonna lose the junior developers because they will never be able to do that output, and whatever, you might get like a golden age of software production that's going to last however many decades. But since you're going to lose the historical ladder that used to exist, where you would get into an entry job and get gradually more experience, and they get, just a normal job, and then eventually might get a senior job, you're going to lose that whole process, because why would companies keep paying employees when you could have just the one producing the output of 10? This is going to last for however long it's going to last, but it's going to all collapse on its own, because when all these geysers, these old geysers, they're going to leave, they won't be part of the workforce. Nobody's going to be able to replace them. And by that time, most likely, we're going to be forced or contained into a worldview where we always fall back to what these models say, because it's going to be treated as if it was the whole truth, but it's not. And so whenever it's going to collapse, it's just going to either fall apart, or we're going to be so far off in the wrong direction that it's going to be too late to come back. That's going to be so nice.
Drops. But I think in a number of years, I don't know when, that's going to get abstracted away. No one's going to interact with software anymore. Like in 5 years, 3 years, I don't know. Because the new kind of like layer will be AI agents. Like, why would you use Photoshop when you can just tell your AI agent what needs to be done? And the chances are, if it's your personal assistant that knows what you need, it probably has context on kind of like if I make thumbnails, at some point it's going to be able to make them better than I can, and it knows everything that I like and what works for my channel. Like, at some point, I will no longer use Photoshop myself. Like, clicking on things with a mouse, that's going to get archaic really, really fast. But there's this small window that I think is a huge opportunity. Now, Dario Amodei, in that clip that I was talking about earlier, he refers to that as kind of like the centaur moment. I'm not sure if that was his words, or that might have been the interviewer that suggested that terminology. The whole idea of a centaur, I think Ethan Malik was kind of like the first person to introduce it, as far as I know. And so, of course, a centaur is half man, half horse. And this is as opposed to a cyborg. So in the context of AI, a centaur is like the AI does something, and then you step in and you do something, and you hand it back and forth in order to complete the task. Whereas a cyborg is something where it's more like integrated, where it's like you can't tell where one ends and the other one begins. So here, for the purposes of software engineering, they're saying that Dario said,
If you have ever looked at a cyborg, you can literally tell exactly where one ends and where one begins. What the fuck do you mean? There's human parts, and there's non-human parts. Come on, bro.
saying that at some point, very, very soon, it will be fully automated. But what he's seeing right now is this window where human in the loop, so somebody that's watching the outputs of the AI agent and just going back and forth with it, they're calling it kind of like that centaur age, that this is where that's going to be called for quite a bit. And I'm experiencing that myself, because in order to drive the creation of that website that I'm building forward, yes, the AI agents are building everything for me, but I do have to get in there and be like, okay, do this next, do this next. So I'm kind of like
So there's no autonomy, okay? This is specifically wording that contradicts any claims of autonomy. Please understand that.
top level leadership telling it what to do, and all the work is done entirely by the AI agents. So that's like the perfect kind of description of what a centaur is. But what Dario's saying is, at some point that will go away and it'll become 100% automated. So he's saying right now, prepare for the age of the centaur, but that age might not last that long, right? We don't know how long that's going to be around for. So if you want to build something, build it now, I guess is my point. Because we don't know what's coming next. That's what the singularity means. That's what the singularity looks like. It's a point at which it's extremely difficult to understand or predict what's going to happen next. And like I said a few weeks ago, I think we are entering it, or entered just the edges of it. We're sliding into the singularity, because me, for one, I'm not sure what happens at that point when we reach full automation. What happens to AI development if it's fully...
If you get full automation, you're going to get people displaced. you're gonna have job losses. You're gonna have a lot of issues. So even if you get UBI, even if you get whatever, it's not gonna look good.